So in this lesson again, we're going to focus on one specific topic, which is describe a time when you waited for something special to happen. Right? So in this lesson again, we're going to focus especially on part 2 as well as part 3, which will come for your speaking test. Now, as I always tell you, remember to practice well, okay? So when you're doing this, obviously have a look at the answers, right? Have a look at my descriptions, and then after that, record yourself and practice, okay? All right, so let's have a look at the card. Speaking part 2, let's have a look at the cue card. Describe a time when you waited for something special to happen. You should say what you waited for, why it was special, what you do there, and explain how you felt when you were waiting. Okay? So, this is in the past when you waited. Let me just get the blue color. When you waited for something special to happen. Okay? So, it said you were waiting for some time, but it already happened, right? Why it was so special, what you do there, and explain how you felt when you were waiting. So again, in the past, how you felt. Okay? What you waited for, what was so special about it. So actually, at the exam, you will have 1 minute to prepare, and if you wish, you can make some notes. You will have to speak 1 to 2 minutes. So, let's have a look at a sample answer. Now, starting off, well, we are always excited for something special to happen. So, the student starts off with an introductory line. And here, I would like to share my experience when I was really excited about my holidays. So, what was the student excited about? Holidays, right? Why was it special? Well, the thing is that my family plans holidays once a year, and we always eagerly means you really impatiently wait for it, okay? Wait for these vacations. So vacation is a holiday. The fact that we go on vacations in the group, my uncles, my aunts, and my nephews, nieces, and cousins, we all travel together. So that's quite an experience, okay? When everyone travels once a year, feels good. This thing really makes the holiday fun and enjoyable. Okay, so words that you could probably use. So another word for enjoyable could be exciting. You could also use another word like memorable. Okay. Unfortunately, approximately 6 months ago, when we planned a holiday, my grandmother suddenly fell sick. She had to be hospitalized and we had to be available for her care. Although we were a little disappointed, of course, our grandma's health was more important. Well, after a few months, she got perfectly fine, and once again, we planned the holidays, right? Explain how you felt when you were waiting. This time we were even more excited. In fact, we had made all the arrangements to go for the vacations, and this time to search for corona cases. The state forced lockdown, and once again we couldn't travel. We had really frustrated, but we really couldn't do anything about it. So you can see a bit in the student answer, we had really frustrated. Not so good in terms of grammar. I think I would not use this kind of pattern. So I would say, well, when my grandmother was hospitalized and the wait until now to go on the trip, okay, or the wait till we went on the trip, actually, we were really impatient, right? And we were just frustrated because we couldn't go first time. But you know, the second time going on that trip made us think, oh wow, now we're going on the trip, okay? So I would not really use this kind of example, right? Actually, so I'm picking out answers so I can share what I think would be good for you to answer, okay? Finally, last month when corona restrictions were eased, we were keeping our fingers crossed this time. We didn't want the vacations to get cancelled yet, okay? Conclusion is fine, but I feel that the middle bit could have been better, right? And if I was to answer that, right, describe a time when you waited for something special to happen. So I'd like to talk about this wait that I waited for my first son to be born. So that time I didn't know that he was a son, right? So I actually waited for something like a little miracle to come true and, you know, to hold it in your hands actually, okay? So it was special because it was my first pregnancy and I didn't know anything about a child. And you know, the feeling of holding a baby in your hands for the first time would be something, a unique experience, okay? And I don't think I could still describe that in words. Because, I mean, you hold so many babies. I had held so many babies, but it wasn't your real own baby, right? So that real feeling to come out was something so special. Well, I didn't have to do anything there. So it was just that I had to wait for a few months for the baby to actually be born. And how I felt during that wait was I was impatient. It was mixed feelings. I was happy. I was anxious. And then, you know, during the latter part of the pregnancy, I couldn't sleep. So it was quite stressful. And then when the baby is born, that's when you really hold the baby for the first time. That feeling was just amazing. So the wait was lots of mixed feelings, but finally at the end, what I got after the wait was just amazing, right? So I think that was a time when I waited for something really special to happen. And I don't think anything else could be matched for that occasion, right? So I would explain about that. You could explain anything which you feel is good, right? Maybe something like this where you had to wait to go on a vacation, okay? But let's also have a look at another answer. Model answer 2, right? No one can deny that special occasions add colors to our life. I like the phrase, add color to our life. You can obviously say add color or colors, right? So it depends. Everyone likes unique things and special treats, but it is impossible to receive them daily. So people have to wait for a short or long time. Recently, I had a special item for which I had been waiting for a long time. Now, I wouldn't want to use special items, so maybe you would want to think about using the word item, okay? Because they're asking you, the question says, describe a time, okay? So be careful actually in your speaking exam when you use this kind of words. I completed graduation in computer science a few months ago, and a laptop is an essential item in that course because students have to prepare their projects, programming files and presentation on it. But I did not have it. I requested my father to buy a laptop for me. So the answer is based on waiting for a laptop, and that's why recently I had a special item for which I had been waiting for a long time. But I would rather like to rephrase it and say, recently I had to wait for a long time for this special thing to arrive. Okay, so that would be better if you had rephrased it. Okay. All right, so why was it special? Because obviously you didn't have a laptop and you are following a course about computers and you really want a laptop, okay? So getting a new laptop would be really, really exciting. My father told me that I would have to wait for 1 month because we bought a new house at that time, so we couldn't afford another new item for a few days. It was very special for me because all my friends had their own laptops. I had to borrow it from them for some time. Sometimes, due to a busy schedule, they could not give me their laptop because they already were doing work on it. So sometimes, people have their own agenda, so could not borrow it. How was the wait? I felt very excited when I came to know my father ordered a new laptop for me through an online shopping website. The company messaged us that product would be delivered. So it has to be the product. Now, when we write things like this, that's why I say it's always good, right, to write it and see it, but actually you should record it and listen, okay? So the is missing, right? The company messaged us that the product would be delivered within 4 days. The time of 4 days looked as if were long 4 months, okay? Because the wait was so long and you feel, oh, I'm waiting and you're waiting and waiting, right? When I received the laptop, my eyes filled with tears of joy. I felt pleased and I thanked my father for this, okay? So my eyes filled with tears of joy, okay? Nice phrase commonly used in the language. You could think about using it, okay? So a different experience. Another answer for the same question. During the pandemic, we all had to stay indoors. There were no social get-togethers. This could be a really long wait, right? My sister had got engaged in 2019 and we were eagerly waiting for her wedding. My cousins and I had made plans for Sangeet, a ceremony with dance and songs. Suddenly, the government banned all gatherings, okay? We couldn't have anything during Corona. My father suggested that we could have a quiet wedding in the court. The suggestion was neither acceptable to me nor the bridegroom's family. My mother came up with the idea that we go ahead with the court marriage and later we could celebrate with all pomp and show, right? Pomp is when your relatives and everyone comes from abroad for a gathering, okay? So, after the court marriage, we waited for 10 months. Once the rules were relaxed, we all started preparing for the great day. My father booked a marriage palace, right? Now, a marriage palace is a place where you have marriage ceremonials or you have your registration. It's a space given out to conduct the marriage rituals. For the great event, it was difficult to book the marriage palace because many people had been waiting for things to relax and celebrate their family functions. But somehow we got the date after 15 days. So that was the wait. My cousins and I started preparing for the dances which we had to do at the wedding. Those 15 days were full of fun and joy and we were rehearsing most of the time. I even taught a few steps to my mum and dad to perform on stage for a minute or two. My sister also prepared a solo dance performance. One of my aunts is a very good dancer and she choreographed all the dances for us, okay? So what do you mean by choreographing? Where you teach them the steps and you put different steps, right? It's like you edit an essay, right? But you don't edit a dance, but you choreograph a dance, right? So you teach them the steps and the different moves, right? And the songs, and you blend the different dancing steps together, right? And explain how you felt when you were waiting. Finally, the great day came and I remember it was full of merriment that everyone enjoyed it. I guess there was a lot of fun and happiness around. Although the conditions had relaxed, we were still allowed only a fixed number of guests. We shared the videos of the dances and the great party on social media. I remember many of our contacts were very angry with us later for not having invited them. Ultimately, they all understood and realized that we were also bound by the rules and could not break them. Okay, so here was a nice thing where you had to wait for a long time and the wait was really, really frustrating. But at the end, they had a time to celebrate the ceremony. Fairly good answer, I would say again. Okay. And the conclusion is, I only wish this pandemic situation goes away once and for all. So this was the special thing that I waited for eagerly. So a nice closing sentence here, right? And the linker so is good to use. All right, so moving on, we're going to have a look at a few part 3 questions. Okay? Now, obviously, the part 3 questions that you get would be linked to your part 2 topic, right? So when you have to explain about an occasion that you had to wait, you wouldn't have to talk about newspapers. Okay? The question would always be linked around the topic that you got in your part 2 cue card or long run. On what occasions do people usually need to wait? So it depends. I mean, sometimes you need to wait in a queue to buy something, okay, or maybe to pay a bill. Sometimes you need to wait patiently when you apply for a job to get back a response, okay. I mean, in life, it depends. More or less, every time we need to wait patiently for things to come by. And even if we struggle in life sometimes without being in a rush, to take bad decisions, we need to wait and see how things move ahead. So it might not really be for a special occasion, but I think on a day-to-day basis, most people need to wait for things. So I think that waiting is a big part of our everyday life, and we have to wait for many of the situations in our life, okay? It could be when we are meeting someone, when we order food at a restaurant, or when we need to travel by public transport. In general, if the situation or the task requires 2 or more people to complete it, then the waiting factor kicks in automatically. Nice word. Kicks. So you can say the waiting factor kicks in automatically. So that's just what I gave in as well. Right. So moving on. Who behaves better when waiting for children or adults? Again, questionable. Depends. I mean, children, depending on their age group, rather tend to be difficult to wait for long hours, right? But still, they are patient, okay? And they could wait for a certain time. Adults, on the other hand, being more matured, could actually take the responsibility of waiting patiently, but sometimes they become so impatient and arrogant during the wait time. So I think it depends. I think adults have more patience when it comes to waiting because they are more mature. And from their past experience, they know that some things are worth the wait. On the other hand, children want everything with the click of a button and lack patience. I mean, I would say that depends. That's why I said it depends, but perfectly fine to give an answer like this, okay? I've seen children waiting for a long time to get something, and they are quite patient, right? So I think it depends on the personality. But here, this is also not wrong. You could say that adults are more patient than kids. So what I think is really important is bringing out your views, right? It could be either saying that, it depends, or you can say, no, adults are better and then kids have less patience, okay? Right, moving on to the next question. Compared to the past, people are less patient now. Why? Okay. So I feel, yes, people are less patient now because of the stressful lives that they have, right? Everyone is running behind something. They go to work, they get up in the morning, and then, they go out for work, they come back home, they have a very stressful job. Living expenses have hit the ceiling, so everyone's really stressful, and in this rat race, everyone wants to be the first, so they've become very impatient. Yes, people are less patient nowadays because technology had made things a lot faster and convenient for people. People can now order food online and it is delivered to their homes in less than 30 minutes. So people expect that everything can be done faster. However, this is also making them impatient because if they have to wait for something which they feel can be done in a less amount of time, then they start feeling uncomfortable, frustrated, and annoyed. Right. What are the positive and negative effects of waiting on society? Right? So yes, there are positive effects, there are negative effects. The positive effects is that, you become patient and you're able to handle situations. You don't get stressed, you don't get uncomfortable. But what is the negative effect? If you are a nation that keeps on waiting and waiting and waiting, you could probably miss the good opportunities around, okay? And then if you don't respond to customers quickly and for their inquiries or their doubts, maybe someone else would, and then, that whole business is gone. Waiting has positives as well as negatives. From a positive point of view, I think that it helps to develop patience in people and society and becomes more tolerant. When people are willing to wait for others, it shows that they care for them. From a negative perspective, you can see here nice words, positive point of view, negative perspective, right? So perspective again is point of view. I think waiting can have disastrous effects sometimes. For example, if we have to wait for long for an ambulance, the consequences can be fatal. Fatal means it could even cause death. Secondly, waiting for long periods in offices or other places can hamper productivity, okay? Or you could use the word can hinder. Okay? So these are the things that you could talk about in terms of the positive aspects of waiting and the negative aspects of waiting on society. All right, so I think with that, we have come to the end of the lesson, where we focused about describe a time when you waited for something special to happen. Remember, the key is to practice, and when you're practicing, record yourself.